Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us at today's Microsoft Tech Community Live AMA for Android and Linux Management with Intune. I'm Max Stein. I'm your host today. Joining with me, I have a few friends to talk about Android and Linux management. So looking at my screen, I'm going here from right to left. We have Lothar, Clay, and Courtney. I'll kick it off to you guys to make intros.
Thanks, Max. Hey, everyone. I'm Clay Taylor, part of the Intune PM architect team in our CXC organization. My main focus is on zero trust and basically securing your devices using zero trust. Then I'll turn it over to Courtney and Lothar.
Yeah, I'm Courtney. I'm also part of the same team. Clay and I are actually on the same team. So I'm also an architect, and my specialties and focus areas are first-line worker, Android, and Apple. Lothar?
Okay, so I'm making then the final round here. So my name is Lofer. Well, in the broader team, so we're in the same team, but I'm not in the architect team like Clay and Courtney. So I'm in the EMEA team for in the CAT team in particular. So we are working together with customers and working on insights. So my specialties are Linux and Androids, and of course the Intune service.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. To kick right things off, I have our first question here. Got a bit of a long one here, so buckle up and get ready here. So from Tech Community, about Azure AD user authentication for Ubuntu. Is there any official article or roadmap to support Ubuntu users to sign in to their Ubuntu physical machine using their Azure AD credentials? We have already implemented Intune portal access to internal resources in our on-prem AD joined Ubuntu devices, but would like to migrate to Azure AD join and user logins.
Okay, so it seems to me I will pick the question. So I think the question is coming from the recent announcement from Ubuntu itself, because they offered or announced on a blog post that they have now, beside the AD integration, also a AAD integration. So this goes a little bit aside the things what we are doing currently. So the target what Ubuntu is doing today is targeting the 2304 release, which is not on our supported lists because it's the yearly cadence. We are supporting LTS releases, so 20 and 2204 LTS. This is one thing. Even if Ubuntu said so, they're backporting the stuff. It's on a GitHub repository, so it's a kind of a their own development. So you can, if you watch the video, for example, on Ubuntu, so it explains quite well how it works. So you have an app in the AAD, and this is where you're authenticating to. And if your user credentials are confirmed, that you logged in the machine, so basically saying, right? So it's nice. It's very nice. Of course, could imagine to integrate this in a better workflow when it comes to log on the machine or doing the enrollment of the machine. But I think we have to evaluate different components. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but the nature of the things means if we are supporting Ubuntu and if we're partnering with Ubuntu, we would need to look at all the other distributions as well. So it's a very, very great job what Ubuntu did, and certainly brings a lot of benefits to have the AAD credentials already available for the login. So we don't have any concrete plans yet. So because we have different things for now on the roadmap where we're working on. As I said, it's an interesting feature, but there are no concrete plans at the moment to integrate this in the enrollment flow.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. Maybe a sidebar to that question. Maybe Courtney, you can maybe chime in a little bit about this. Maybe I'm kind of new to Intune, maybe new to Linux. I guess how would I get started with, like, what would be the best? Are there any tips or best practices you can share of, like, how can I get started?
For Ubuntu or Linux?
Correct,
I
yeah.
think Lothar needs to answer that one.
I can answer, Courtney, because I can see that also we have some Android questions in the queue, so I will pick up that.
Yeah, go ahead, and then we can get to the Android questions.
Okay, cool. So to get started with, so if you want to enroll, And if you want to have it not too complicated, so you can focus on the standard settings like password complexity and the releases as a standard compliance policy because they are available in the UI. For the enrollment itself, it's pretty good documented how to proceed. So first of all, you need to bring down the Edge browser for all the authentication pieces, and then after that, so you have you need to type a few commands because that's the nature of Linux. In the terminal, and then so you install the Intune app, so which is doing the rest, including the device registration in AAD, and then the device is enrolled and you can play around. So if you're more experienced in scripts, so you can go and you can add your custom scripts for sure. And with this, so you can extend the compliancy for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Another question here. Some time ago, I read that you're planning to add support for other Linux distributions besides Ubuntu. Is there any
still another one? Okay, so we can pick it up. So Courtney, do apologize, right? So I try to answer that too. So yes, the next release we'll be working on is Red Hat Linux to support. And we know there's a bunch of distributions out. So what we're doing currently is we're doing an analysis with our customers. What are the most used distributions? And certainly we started with Ubuntu because Ubuntu is generally saying one of the most used distributions, and to get some feedback. And even internally Microsoft, we're using Ubuntu. So you can see in Asia when you're setting up a machine or so that you have these templates available all across. And then after that, so as I said, so soon we should come in with the Red Hat, and of course there are conversations about the others like Fedora, Debian, CentOS, and I totally SUSE, and I'm totally confident that I forgot at least 100 more. So because the nature of things, no, but seriously saying, so we are analyzing what are the main distributions what our customers are using, and then we need to partner up with the AAD team to port even the authentication libraries to these distributions. So that's another piece what we need to have before we can enroll the machine. So, but there's work in progress.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. In addition, there's one thing I caught, and that's feedback. I mean, we are also always listening. So if you have direct product feedback, there it is right there. Share your feedback, aka.ms/Intune feedback. That goes directly to our Intune portal. In addition to that, if you have your account team, if you're a Microsoft partner, feel free to share your feedback there as well. If you're out in specifically for the Intune blade as well, so the Intune Admin Center, you can share your feedback there at the top right, in addition to the feedback portal. So again, we're always listening. Let us know. In addition of anything and everything Linux and Android, I mean, any product feedback, feel free to share it there. Another Linux question here. So for those of us who manage Linux machines with Intune, miss many management features that can only be found in other operating systems. Wipe device, get device information, policy catalog. The question is, does Microsoft plan to provide any management power that other platforms such as Windows or Mac OS have for Linux devices?
Well, let me answer in the way what I like the most. It depends. So it's really depends. Because so we have to be when we're looking at the supported OSs, right? So we have to compare this fairly. So when we're looking at Windows, there's management agent integrated as well as we have the payloads across Apple stack, right? So we have Android management API in Android devices. So this gives us already a certain capability. So this is not the same way what we have in Linux devices because there's not standardized management stack. So the nature of things, and if you're considering or looking at tools like Puppet, for example, which is going to configuration state management. So it's mainly a kind of a tool or implementation which uses kind of an agent which reads out the distribution, and then so you have configuration scripts and configuration files, and this is going to be sent to the device, and then you're setting something, and then you have a checkup script which is performed by the agent. So you can see, so a lot of things is agent based. The thing is, where we're investing a lot, or where we're spending a lot of investment time and efforts is the script engine. There is even some improvements came in 23.05. I will mention, I can mention this right now, so without playing the demo. But so the thing is that at the beginning we had POSIX scripts because we were thinking about that's the best approach for going all across Linux because that's everywhere the same. POSIX is supported on each and every Linux platform. But the thing is, the reality shows Bash script is the most used one, and then so you have a few other things. So we extended now the support for Bash, so you can give them out. For the configuration piece, you can run them as root or as user. So both ways are possible. And for the compliance scripts, we extend the root capability soon. And this helps us, like it is with Puppet, to get the state and set the machine to a compliance state accordingly. Of course, there are a few features which would make sense to have in the console, like remote actions. This is the thing where we're actively looking into, but we have to think about how the feedback channel could look like between the console, the service, and the machine. This is and even other stuff which could find the way to that. Other configuration things like I would say software install for the time being. So it's mainly driven when we're looking at Puppet via command line or scripts, and this is a thing what we're keeping at this level for now. Yeah. But I keep it open, right? So I wouldn't say that there's no investment in the future. That would be wrong to say. So the thing is basically we're keeping at the level to say here we're seeing the majority scripts that we're supporting the script engine in the right way to enable you to have your management capabilities as you need. If you're seeing like remote action that we need to build up a channel, then we have to think in a different way, and we're going to implement this for sure.
Awesome. That's great information. Thanks for that. And like outside of this, if I was like new to Intune and Linux, I think I'd be spinning up something right now and like watching this session. And so lots of great information. Thanks again. Changing gears a little bit. I think we have an Android question here. Is it possible to disable Google autofill on Android devices with Intune?
Yeah, I saw that question. There's a couple things that popped in my mind. I think they're specifically asking around disabling autofill in browser. So which browser is my first question. I can speak to Edge in this manner, since this is a Microsoft conversation, or Microsoft AMA. So we do have some settings that can disable browser autofill if needed for Edge. There is a setting that's in the legacy, if I recall correctly, in legacy device admin, which has been marked as being deprecated by Google and beginning with Android 10. But there is a setting there, but it's only for Samsung Knox. So really, in this scenario, from an Edge perspective, yes, there are some app config settings that you can apply to disable autofill and restrict it, as well as a ton of other settings too.
Awesome.
Yep. And whoever asked the question, if you don't mind putting in some additional information about why you're wanting to block that specific use case, that helps us if we're trying to prioritize a new feature. It really helps if we actually have the full use case of why you actually want to do that thing. So if you don't mind just adding that information in, it'd be very helpful.
Yeah, and provide feedback in the feedback channel. So
awesome.
If you don't see the feature, right, or have an ask.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Courtney and Clay. A bit of feedback from live on the air. Looks like Suchi from Air Products is saying hi to Clay and Courtney.
Suchi, great to see you.
Good. Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Awesome. Another question here from Peter. This may be a very simple question, but I'm confused about whether the company portal is now the recommended way of managing Android devices and whether that should be picked from the store or downloaded via the portal.
That's a great question. So company portal is often a topic of discussion, whether it's required for things like app protection policies. You might have heard the term MAM or app. So app for app protection policies on Android devices, that the company portal is required to be on the device. You don't need to sign in or anything, but it does need to be on a device to support MAM, and that's can be in a BYO scenario or a fully managed scenario. Anything beyond that, you don't really need to have the company portal. So for example, if you're enrolling to work profile today on a personal device, you do need to use the company portal. So that's the other scenario. So we have two scenarios now. We have MAM and we have the work profile on a personal device. But anything beyond that, like Android Enterprise, AOSP, the company portal is not required. There are some scenarios that it can be useful. However, if you're enrolling a device in Android Enterprise, you're typically using the Zero Touch from Google or Samsung, QR code, or some other mechanism to enroll those devices. And then after that, device is managed. So there's not a company portal flow to enroll those devices. To gain access to an app catalog, all that is driven through managed Google Play. And so that's automatically added to the device, both under work profile as well as on fully managed Android Enterprise devices itself.
One thing just to add there, Courtney mentioned requiring the company portal app for MAM, and this just came up with the customer last week actually, and it's something I just want to touch on really quick. Is we do have the option, if you are not also looking to have your Android users enroll their device in full MDM, you can actually turn that off. If you're doing MAM only, you can actually say, hey, we know that the company portal app is required, but we're not going to give the user the option to actually enroll their device in MDM if you just want to do MAM only, and MAM without enrollment for those Android devices. So that's a setting which we can put a link in chat to, or in the question to as well after the session.
Awesome. That's a great note. I guess piling onto that, I know some customers often run into conditional access issues with MAM or app. Are there any notes or caveats or kind of things customers need to consider when deploying app with conditional access or anything like that?
That's probably a whole other AMA, but at a high level, I mean, there's some things to consider. So if you want to restrict access, if you want to control access to certain apps for certain users or device compliance and things like that, then there's a whole set of conditional access policies that you can check off and configure within the Azure AD portal under conditional access. And then within MAM itself, the policies, there are a lot of different configuration settings to further control access to data. For example, if the app isn't a certain version, you could block access, and then it would prompt to update the version of that app, such as Outlook and so on. So there's just a lot of things to consider within there. I don't know, Clay, if you have anything to add, or Lothar.
I think you covered everything that I would have covered.
Okay.
Awesome. And here at the bottom here, we have a URL, aka.ms/ama/Intune does cross-plat. So please take a look at that. Another question here from Zeb. Teams Rooms devices currently need to be enrolled using Android Device Admin, which is pretty legacy at this point. Will we be seeing any changes in the future?
I have nothing to confirm today, but yes, it is. We understand that Teams devices, there are a lot of those out there that are deployed and using device admin. It was the first and is the only management method today. We are looking at different options in the future to manage those devices. We totally understand the DA is, or device admin is being deprecated. And when I say deprecated, Intune itself isn't deprecating DA, right? It's Google have marked it, and I said this earlier, Google marked it for deprecation beginning with Android 10. And what that meant and what that means is they started removing features from the Android OS itself. And so there were some password items that were removed in Android 10, but as we move on into Android 11, 12, and so on, more features are removed, and so the ability to manage the device at the level that DA granted, so that kind of over granted admin perms, you could pretty much do anything you wanted. They're slowly removing that capability, and they're really pushing organizations to manage devices through Android Enterprise.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
In addition, I know you touched on both the question and Courtney, just how do we and customers get see any changes? Like how can they see roadmap? And I'd like to kind of share we have a couple of public docs. I mean, we have our Intune in development docs. That's aka.ms/Intune indev. You can see what's coming in future releases. So like as an example for this month, I think if you look now, you can kind of map that to our Intune what's new, right? And so 2306, or the June release, is just shipping out this week, and so you can kind of see the back and forth of what features have shipped, and of course, like what's coming in future releases. Outside of that, we have aka.ms/Intune new, of course. That's our What's New docs, where you can see what's the latest and greatest. Again, that was recently updated. We also have a tech community blog as well, co-wrote by our director, Ramya Shatar. So she highlights our what's new, like what she finds exciting. So in addition of roadmap and kind of what's new, in addition of our blogs, that's how you can stay up to date. I guess anything else folks who might want to add?
Now you pretty much answered what I was going to say. So we do and we do participate in LinkedIn, of course, and on Twitter. So you'll see various posts from us and our peers every day. Right? There's always something new going on out there. So you can follow us and follow others, and you'll see things that we like and whatnot.
Awesome. Yeah, and also another plug. I mean, you mentioned Twitter and LinkedIn. I mean,
Yeah.
Of course, you can follow us there from the Twitter side of things. If folks are not already aware, yeah, aka.ms/Intune subteam. If you're not familiar, or at Intune subteam or Intune support team, they do a really great job at amplifying known issues, support tips, kind of what's new, what's coming. As I mentioned earlier, like this month's release, or the 2306 June release, they're just letting you know that what tenants are getting the latest updates. And that's also a plug for myself. And so I'm actually the face behind that team or handle. So here I am. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to tag. And of course, like Lothar, Clay, and Courtney, they're also out on Twitter as well. And so we're a collective effort. We're a great group of folks. If you have questions, throw it at us. We're always happy to help.
And just as an FYI, we'll also be, if we don't get to your question during the session, we will be answering questions on the page, even post-session. And if we have follow-ups on there, we'll make sure to follow up with you as well.
Awesome. Next question here from Mohammed. Can we deploy the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint onboarding package to Linux environment through Intune?
Via script, yes. So that's the short answer. So as I think the question before was a little bit in that way, to ask if we have similar capabilities like for Windows, for example, where we're offering several ways to deploy software to the device. So that's not the case. So, but for that reason, we introduced the root support for scripts or configuration scripts, and this can be actually leveraged the user or root access level to deploy software and call the package management. This is what other tools are doing too, right? And this is one of the things how people are now deploying Defender to the machine, right? So it's quite when I'm looking all across in the customers I'm talking to, it's quite a common way to do that. I know that for the admin point of view, there's all the time the desire, can I not, have a little bit more comfortable scenario in the console? But as I said, we want to really go in that slices to say what are the customers using the most, and today that's definitely scripts, even for software install, and then so focusing on the parts what we have to bring on the UI. I think speaking about other distributions is a little bit more important than having this UI for that, so we can help with a script on that for sure. So by the way, for script, so we're working now on a repository. We're brand new in that way on the Linux side of things. I know it's not comparable to any PowerShell library, what you probably know, or macOS stuff, but we're improving this slowly but continuously. So we are working with a few customers together to get ideas about compliance scripts and files, rules files for that, or even configuration scripts. And our intent is to give you a set of examples. It will take, I would say, a month or two until we have a good repository available. But then I think we can share broadly out over the channels what Max mentioned, where to find all the example scripts. So if you cannot wait, so you can search for Linux scripts, Intune, and macOS, because we consolidated macOS and Linux to one repository on Git. So that's the thing what I can say to that.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that. I think you touched on one piece, and that's just scripts and repos and like sharing feedback. So if I'm a customer and I have like something that you should host, or like something that I would find useful to have like Microsoft host, I guess where can they share that feedback? Should you send them the feedback hub?
Feedback hub is a good one. No, I was, I was just on the start thinking, because before it was GitHub, and then GitHub, so you have, the ability to comment on things and contribute directly, right? So which is also a feedback channel. But of course, you're right, Max, right? So that's the best way to provide feedback to us, right, over the Intune feedback hub.
aka.ms/Intune feedback for those on the call.
Awesome. Thanks, Clay.
And speaking of scripts, just really quick here, we'll have the team post that out. But there's we just launched a updated version of our Intune Scripts Hub. So if you go to aka.ms Intune Scripts, there's various categories in there, and basically those are buckets that point to different repos, where we have a whole slew of scripts that we worked on and updated with current PowerShell modules, as well as current techniques around scripting. So we also have a bucket in there, a repo in there that focuses on Linux and Mac. And so if you need some scripts, or if you have ideas for scripts, please send them our way, because we're always looking for ideas and updating scripts and creating new scripts and posting them to those repos.
Awesome. Thanks, Courtney.
Yeah.
And I believe I also saw some feedback out on Twitter as well. And so not only did we amplify something and share it out with the community, but we also got that community feedback. And so again, like to pile on, I mean, we're always listening based on community feedback. We were able to get like a fix in that day. So
well, yeah, I mean, a perfect example of that is when we launched the Intune scripts, I got some feedback on the portal that we launched with, and so I immediately went back and changed it, and it is what it is now. But I appreciate, and we appreciate all that feedback that we get, because we do consider it. We do tell other people about it. We tell the right TM owners about certain feedback, and definitely we're listening.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Another question here from Russell. How can one get assistance with a specific Android device when the vendor, like Honeywell, doesn't support Intune because they have their own MDM? Does Microsoft have teams I can work with that look at major vendors like Honeywell, Samsung, or Google?
Yeah, so I'm sure you heard a grunt. There's my dog, but sorry about that. So yeah, I read that question. I wasn't super clear on that, because we do support Honeywell. We do support pretty much all the majors out there: Samsung, Honeywell, Zebra, Google, what's ASCOM. There's a Data Logic, SpectrumLink. I mean, there's just a ton of vendors out there that we support. So I'm kind of surprised to hear that Honeywell. Hopefully, Honeywell's not giving that feedback, because I'm personally in contact with them. So if they are, we'd love to know. And we'd love to know why. But for sure, Intune supports Honeywell and devices alike. So if there's certain capabilities that you're not seeing there that you feel need to be supported, please let us know. A lot of confusion comes in from a certification standpoint. We heard this term certification. Is your device certified, or are these device OEMs certified with Intune? And that certification term was used kind of in, I don't know, kind of the legacy days, where OEMs or device MDMs, they had to basically code to the type of device OEM that they wanted to manage, meaning that they had to create features to handle specific APIs that were unique to the device OEM. A lot of that has changed when Google moved to Android Enterprise. And what changed is Google kind of pushed off the work to the device OEM to create what's called an app, an OEM config app. And so OEM config basically has the list of device specific OEM settings and APIs within there. And so by adding the app so for example, if you had I believe Honeywell's is called UAM Connect. If you add that app to Intune, you'll see the whole list of device specific settings in the OEM config app itself. Once those are configured, so you can push out things like files, you can push out things like OS update files to the device. You can configure, again, unique settings that are unique to the CT40, for example. That's a common Honeywell device we see out there. So all that stuff's in the OM config app. Once that's configured and pushed out, and then you're managing your apps that way. So again, we'd love to hear feedback if you think we're missing something or if you need additional information. We do have OM config documented out there on our Learn site. We can add a link after the call if needed, but it lists all the OM config device OEMs that we support through OM config on the site itself.
And Russell, just one other comment. Just as Courtney said, we would really like to get your further feedback on your question and why you feel like you're not getting assistance with specific Android devices from certain vendors. And feel free to add that at the aka.ms/ was it Intune feedback?
Yep.
Intune feedback. Add it there and please provide that. Probably don't want to call that out publicly too much if it's a negative personal experience that you might have had. So just add it to Intune feedback and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, you can just direct chat with me too on Twitter if needed. I'm happy to connect with you that way. That's
at Corbern, COURBERN on Twitter. In addition to that, Russell, if you have an existing support case open with either Honeywell or our Intune support team, feel free to reach out to @Intune support team as well, out on Twitter as well. Or I guess any one of us, feel free to DM us your support request or your support case number. We'll be happy to chase that up internally as well.
And there was a second part of that question. Does Microsoft have teams that I can work with at major vendors? Again, we work with all these major vendors, and so pinging any one of us or connecting with any one of us is adequate, and we can reach out directly to them or bubble that up through our channels as well.
Awesome. Oh, great. Thanks much, guys. Another question here from Jeff. What is the future, or aka roadmap, of YubiKey with FIDO2 authentication with Android shared device?
A great question. That's just something that we've been experimenting with, myself included, on the use case of using YubiKeys on shared devices. And so we've had some success there. I can say from my personal experience, I haven't had any issues utilizing a YubiKey to sign into a device. However, that's cert-based auth with the YubiKey. I think what Jeff is asking is FIDO2. So when are we going to support FIDO2 specifically through Azure AD? And so there is a roadmap there. I don't have a specific date to provide today. I would need to connect with my counterparts over in the Azure Active Directory team to get those specific dates. So happy to follow up offline on that. But that's a great question, a great call out.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for the question, Jeff. In addition to that, you mentioned roadmap. I know we mentioned this before, but aka.ms/Intune ID, or I believe we have another aka as well, but Intune InDev. So feel free to stay tuned there as well. In addition to like us following up for other folks, like what's coming to Intune outside of Android and Linux specifically, like what's coming in the new releases. Feel free to head there to see what's coming in the upcoming releases.
And I'm not sure if that's the same Jeff I've been working with, but hi, Jeff, if it is. So.
All roads lead to Jeff.
Yeah, totally.
Another question here from Rob. Will iGel-based Ubuntu Linux devices be compatible with Intune or Azure AD Join?
There are multiple questions in it, right? So I have to really think about it. If I don't know Rob, this question sounds familiar, right? So and I think so. It's been a while when we spoke about especially these Eagle devices, which is going to run on Ubuntu. So we definitely would need to investigate which is the underlying Ubuntu version and if there's some specific customization on top of that. The things what we definitely need on the device like that one, if it's an Ubuntu distribution. So we need to check first out what is the underlying version, right? So this is basically our support statement. If this is an LTS version, that's one part of the journey. The second part is if there's a UI on top of this. So For the moment, we are supporting GNOME because this is the thing what is more or less the default, and this is what we have in the standard. But we need a UI for bringing authentication dialogues up, right? So we need the Edge browser as a prerequisite for authentication. All these things needs a UI. So the thing is, so we have, of course, some tests on other UIs too, because Linux is rather flexible on that. So, but as I said, the supported one is the GNOME. And then, so AAD join is a different thing. When we think about, the mechanism, how we're joining up devices, I would say we should focus on AAD registered devices because that's a prerequisite to enroll the machine. But on the specifics of the Eagle devices, I would ask Rob if he probably can reach out on Twitter, and then so we can have a quick checkup on the system, how it's configured, and then so we can, I think, find a solution for this for this question.
Awesome. And that's at Lothar Z out on Twitter. So feel free to reach out there to have that conversation. Love to work with you. Another question here from Suchi. Hello, Suchi again. Thanks for the question. She has, is there a way to block Linux enrollments?
So I have to say hi, Suchi, again, right? So the thing is, block Linux enrollment. I know what the question is. The ask is about enrollment restrictions. So that's a thing that we're looking into for sure, because it's an item which is important. So for the time being, there are some investigations where we're doing in terms of finding out how we can identify corporate devices, simply saying, right? And when you can identify a corporate device by a unique identification number, then it's the baseline to set up enrollment restriction, because then you have something which can be used to say that's a corp device, that's a personal device, right? So we are not here at this point in time. So the thing is, what we can do is to think about if we have conditional access. It would not block necessarily to have a device which is trying to enroll, that's for sure. But on the other hand, so we can at least say from a CA perspective and access to the backend service, so this is what we can control still with CA. So it's probably not the thing what a lot of asks are about, how to block the personal device for being enrolled. But so the thing is, that we're investigating in, what could be considered as a unique identifier. And to give some backgrounds on this one, so there's plenty of conversations, which one is secure. And even if you're saying, well, take the serial number, it's nice, but a serial number can easily be changed, right? So, and then say, hey, that's my serial number. And then, so it's done. And we're going from a variety from a DPM chip ID, but not every Linux machine has a DPM chip, right? So where we can read through. And then, so there's a really the thought how we can assemble something together which is safe enough to help IT to say that's 100% corporate device, which is also in my asset management system. So I just only try to explain a little bit the complexity behind, even if say, hey, why you don't have enrollment restrictions. So for other platforms, it's given already, right? So when I think about Android, I have CT or Samsung KME, where the device is over the reseller pre-registered, so it's a certain guarantee. Autopilot, of course, we can have the hash, but if you want to have a validated way of records, so you're using the OEM pre-registered ones, right? And then you have the ABM from Apple, so which is also a stage of authority, which is a guarantee that these devices are purchased and they are, corporate devices. So this is what is not existing in Linux, and this is what it makes it complicated a bit, right? So nevertheless, so we know about this ask, so I'm still positive, even if I can not share, it's coming in the next couple of weeks, so that's not because it's really a complicated thing, even if it doesn't look like in the UI in that way, just to share a little bit background. For the time being, please try to achieve the blocking with conditional access.
Yeah, and we just to reiterate what Lothar said, we have no plans in the very near future, but it is something that we're definitely investigating, and we know that it's top of mind for a lot of customers.
Awesome. A lot of great answers. Thank you both. And again, another plug for Intune in development is where you can stay up to date. Again, like we don't have exact timelines or anything. I know we're continuing to work on it and invest in that specific area. But again, like you can always stay up to date, subscribe to RSS feeds, things like that. But again, like that's how you can stay up with the latest and greatest of the roadmap items. Another question here from David for Android. Is there a way to load an APK file using Intune on an Android Cope device, not using Play Store? We are dealing with a poor vendor who can't seem to do versioning correctly, so I can't use the private store, nor do they upload the public Play Store.
Yeah, we get this question a lot, and without going into deep details, basically with Android Enterprise and Intune enrollments, specifically with COPE. So COPE means corporate owned, personally enabled, for those who may not know. That's just a short term for it, or an acronym for it. Today, all apps, line of business, store apps, etc., must be provisioned through Managed Google Play or published through Managed Google Play. Vendors and ISVs have slowly adopted the understanding of using Managed Google Play, but we understand it's still a little painful, right? With other MDMs, there's the concept of, hey, I just have an APK and I don't care what version it is. I can just throw it at the device or in the console and then throw it at the device, and it deploys out there regardless. It'll upgrade and things like that. With Intune and Managed Google Play, that's a requirement. So all apps need to go through Managed Google Play. Now, there's the concept of different testing channels, so alpha, beta, prod, which Intune fully supports. So when you're assigning an app, there's a drop down there. If there are different versions of that app that need to be deployed to the device, you can select it through the assignments of that particular app. Your vendor themselves, what they can do is they can manage their app through Managed Google Play, but they can get what's called an org ID. So your org ID is connected to your particular, and I mean you, customer, particular Managed Google Play instance. So you grab that org ID, you give it to your ISV or app vendor, and they can publish that app directly to your Managed Google Play instance privately. And so it wouldn't be a public app in that sense unless they opted to do that. So currently that's the mechanism to publish apps. Are we looking at, and have we provided feedback to Google about this experience? Absolutely. And we're looking to the future to see what, if anything, would change. But right now, Managed Google Play is the way to go.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yep.
I know we got around 10 minutes left. We'll maybe take a couple of questions, kind of open it up a little bit. Next Android question here from Ong, if I'm pronouncing it right. Sorry. When a managed Android device is onboarded to endpoint security, the device name is different from Intune. Any plan to fix this?
Endpoint security, I'm guessing that's Intune, not, or is it? We think we're talking about Defender here, so it needs clarity there. But I'll just take it as Intune for now. Yes, the device name is different from the device itself. Are there plans to sync those names, for example? I don't have any plans to share today on that. It's definitely feedback we've heard. We have capability to rename devices singularly and in bulk within the portal itself. So if you need to rename the devices that way, but the name won't sync back to the Android devices if that's what you desire. So it's something that we need feedback on, and we need to continue to drive that ask forward with our engineering counterparts.
Awesome. And again, another plug here at the very bottom, share your feedback, upvote others as well. So aka.ms/Intune feedback. And again, sometimes you're not alone. I mean, there's a lot of great feedback from other customers, and chances are you're in the same boat as many others. And so feel free, aka.ms/Intune feedback, search for the scenario that you're looking for. And if it's not that, feel free to share your feedback. Again, we're always listening. We're always keeping an eye out there. Clay, did you have anything to mention? I saw a comment.
I think, the main thing, I would just really love to hear feedback from any customers out there that are deploying the Zero Trust framework across their Linux and Android estate. would love to know, what features you're really looking for. If you have started your zero trust journey, were there any gotchas or hangups that you encountered when deploying to Android and Linux devices? We are internally, really focused on zero trust at Microsoft and deploying zero trust in our zero trust or bust mantra that we have going right now internally at Microsoft. And but would love to hear from you. What are things top of mind for you when it comes to zero trust and Android and Linux, and what should I be pushing the different product groups to focus on? So would appreciate that, and that's it.
Awesome. And the link there at the bottom, aka.ms/Microsoft365/zero trust. That's a mouthful. It's also in chat, I believe, somewhere. But again, aka.ms/Microsoft365/zero trust. There it is. Now you have it. And again, piling on to Clay's comment. Again, I mean, we're always listening. We're always happy to help. Feel free to reach out to any one of us out on Twitter. And again, like LinkedIn as well. And we'll be happy to share your feedback amongst all our peers and make sure your voice is heard.
So Max, can we get an AKA that points to a website that has all those AKAs?
That's a great comment. Yeah, I believe we can do something with your GitHub scripts. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
we can partner there.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
You get an ms/intune links, which is not live yet, so don't go there. But,
yeah, totally.
Awesome. I know we got a few minutes left. I don't think I see any recent comments.
There was one question.
There it is.
Is there any roadmap to
yeah.
extend the endpoint security management for Linux platform through Intune?
I think I'm going to take that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So today we have, as I spoke before, right? So today we have certainly, for the server side of things, the Defender, which is available and can be used, but everything is managed by the Defender platform by Security Center. So that's one thing. As I said, and as you asked, I think it was from you, Mohammed, right? So how we can onboard or install the Defender package on the clients. It can be done in a similar way, but the entity of management is basically also a Security Center. So we don't have any direct integration. I think the question is more about, can I feed this back as a compliance signal to the Intune service? So that's not in today, but we are aware about this feedback. So that's also kind of a similar thing what Clay already mentioned for the enrollment restrictions. So that's certainly a thing what we need to consider when we speak about zero trust for sure. But it's known. It's also a thing that we will investigate in, but I cannot provide any time frame or timeline at the moment.
Awesome. Thanks for that. No, we got a few minutes left, and if we hit the drum roll, please. Last question here from Aiden. How will Intune integration compare to the tools offered in Landscape, which we currently use, specifically management of group access and restrictions? We have several devices that are usable by only a handful of users, and we restrict SSH access. Most of our users are not interacting with the GUI.
I'm not familiar with Landscape. So I think unless with our Courtney, we might have to have a follow-up on that one.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with either.
So yeah, we'll have a follow-up on that one. Aiden, apologize. I'll have to go do some research.
Awesome. Save the best for last, Aiden. So we'll follow up with you offline. Thanks for the question. Congrats to you. But cool, yeah, I think we're at time here almost. I'll look to you guys. We have Lothar, Clay, Courtney. Tell the people what you got going. Anything exciting looking forward to?
Great, Courtney.
I'm looking forward to Ignite coming up here in November, I think is November. So there's gonna be a lot of great announcements there. A lot of cool things to look at. Yeah, that's for me. Thank you for attending today. Hopefully this was useful, and hit us up after the call if you have questions.
Lothar, I know there are some things on the Linux side you're excited about.
I'm all the time excited about Linux management. You know this, Clay, right? So, and Courtney, right? So, so I just can say, right? So that support for Red Hat is coming, right? So which is one of the things. So one question what I've seen, it was not directly asked here, but for some of you might be interesting that we also investigate in WSL support. It's not secret anymore. So so that's the thing where we're looking into. It helps for keeping even this secure or this side secure. So I'm really looking forward to see that one. So I played around with the scripts and root access, which is completely amazed, tried out. It's available since 2305, yeah, since last month. Yeah, and that's it. Ignite, as Courtney mentioned, brings for sure some interesting pieces in. And if you have any questions, so you know where to reach us over in Feedback Hub or even on Twitter. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks much, everyone. Thanks for joining our AMA Android and Linux management with Intune.
Thank you.
Have a good
See ya.
one.